This is another episode of the DoNotDogfeck challenge. So if people are watching these and find them really tedious, I apologise. I'm kind of obsessed with this right now. But, alright, I'm not going to repeat what it is, but the basic question is, why would anybody have sex with a dog? But really it's, why would anybody rape anybody? So I'm continuing the why would anybody have sex with a dog thing, just to make the example more extreme. And one of the obvious reasons, I suppose, why people don't have sex with dogs is because it's illegal. It's against the law, and that law exists partly to, well, it totally exists, I suppose. It exists to reflect the dominant morality of this society, and all societies I know about. I don't know. We don't allow people to have sex with dogs because we think it's disgusting. And we think that the desire to have sex with dogs is aberrant and indicative of some sort of psychopathy. I mean, that's what we think, and I think that's certainly what I think, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. And that thought, that morality, is reflected in the law, alongside some kind of sense of acknowledgement of a dog's right to not be violated, I guess, even though of course we do treat them appallingly, and a lot of other animals we treat even worse. But yeah, I guess there's some kind of sense that dogs have some kind of small canine rights, including the right not to be rogered by their owners on a regular basis. But also, as I say, it's reflective of morality. So I'm just imagining what that would be, what would happen if that wasn't the case. If we just decided, oh, this bestiality law is pointless, no one fucks dogs anyway. Let's just sweep that law from the books. So we could just get rid of that law. So I don't know how many people would actually be put off by that law anyway. This is something that TJ Does Life talks about, although not very coherently, I have to say. But I would imagine that most people are not terribly frightened of being caught, since I would imagine most bestiality and dog fucking happens in the privacy of one's own home, and let's face it, the victim isn't going to talk. And I did see somewhere, I think it was on an episode of 8 out of 10 Cats, that every vet at some point in their career has a dog or some sort of household pet brought to them that's clearly been violated by its owner. So it does kind of go on, but we assume it's a rarity. Just like rape is a rarity, it goes on, but it's a rarity. And it's universally considered to be immoral, like dog fucking. So why bother having a law about it anyway? It's clearly, morality takes care of itself. So let's just imagine that dog fucking was legal. And there was still a small coterie of people who engaged in it, but they were very small and discreet. But then maybe someone would imagine a market for that. So maybe a magazine publisher or two would start making specialist magazines for the canine love market, and you'd start getting magazines on the top shelves of newsagents. Bitches in Heat magazine, or Dog Fucker Monthly, Hot Dog magazine. A bunch of magazines would appear on the top shelf, featuring colour spreads of dogs in provocative poses, with the tails up and the legs open, and I'm sure they'd have a small but dedicated following of buyers. And in some of these magazines, I guess you'd see owners with them, maybe not actually fucking the dog, but just in a relatively suggestive pose near them, perhaps stroking them suggestively or something like that. Yeah, so you'd have these magazines, and of course kids wouldn't be able to buy them, they'd be on the top shelf. I actually used to be able to buy magazines just like that in Amsterdam many years ago. I don't know if it's still the case, but certainly when I went to Amsterdam as a teenager, I was very surprised, because I walked into a sex shop and there actually was, donkey sex magazines and kiddie sex magazines just on open sale. It was quite astonishing. I'm sure they've clamped down it by now. But yeah, it's that kind of a situation where you can just buy dog sex magazines. I mean, the question I would be interested to know at this point is, given the existence of these magazines in the world, would it be more likely or less likely that somebody would have sex with a dog? Would the numbers of incidences of dog sex go up, or would they go down? Or would it stay the same? You know, is it just completely arbitrary? You know, some people do it, and they do it whether it's legal or not. They do it whether there's magazines about it or not. It just happens. Or on the other hand, is there a correlation between the availability of dog sex magazines and the incidences of dog fucking in a society? Well, I think the answer's pretty bloody obvious, really. I mean, certainly there's a strong correlation between the amount of sexual license in the society, as displayed by, for example, free availability of pornography, and the incidences of sexual violence in that society. So certainly when the sexual revolution happened in Western Europe and the States in the 1960s, the amount of access to sexual materials, like pornography for example, was in lockstep with the increase in the number of rapes and sexual attacks. And although we have this image of sexually repressed societies in which, you know, women are kept covered up and men have deeply pent up sexual desires which occasionally burst forth in episodes of rape, that's not really borne out by the facts. Most, you know, rapes are much more common in societies with a greater degree of sexual license and free access to pornography. So go figure. So anyway, yeah, just the last I don't know if this is the last response. I think I've got one more to do actually. We'll see. One, why would somebody feck a dog? Because they think it's alright, or they were thinking about it, they've toyed with the idea, you know. They look on the top shelf at W.H. Smith's, they say Bitches in Heat magazine, go home and poke the poodle. Maybe. I'm not saying it's a great theory, but it's at least as strong as the rape gene theory, let's be honest.